What's up, guys? This is GawdlikeMatt, and today I'm bringing you a very special video. This one is going to be about what Dark Souls 2 did right. Now, I know a lot of people have their own speculation and opinions on what this game actually did better than its previous titles, but, like I said, that can be left up to speculation. Everyone has their own opinion on certain things. But for this video, we're going to be taking a look at what Dark Souls 2 overall and in general did right. So without further ado, this is the top 6 things Dark Souls 2 did right. Number 6, the Coffin. So what this thing does is it changes your sex. It gives you the body of the opposite sex you chose in character creation, but leaves the face exactly the way you had it. This is definitely an awkward change to go through, and a lot of people think that it was just a really weird thing to add into the game, but I personally welcome the option. In my opinion, it doesn't matter how strange or unnecessary an option can be in a game. As long as you have the option, that's what counts. And that's something a lot of developers today don't realize. This coffin is a symbol of the small things other games lack that overall make games like Dark Souls a better game. Hell, I found myself actually making use of this thing. I started the game as a female, and I went and got the Mad Warrior set for myself. But when I put it on, I noticed the way the female moves makes the armor look weird and a little feminine. So I changed my body to a guy so it would look better. Unfortunately, that leaves me with a hideous baby face, but so what? That's what helmets are for. Number 5, leveling stats. Unlike the last 2 entries in the Souls series, not a single stat in this game is useless. Putting points into any stat can be beneficial for multiple reasons, and this was the first Souls game I found myself truly dividing all my points amongst all stats at different times. For example, separating the maximum equip burden from endurance and making it its own stat was genius. This makes it so that you can effectively wear any piece of armor you want, and no matter what the weight, with enough points, usually around 20 to 25, you can wear most good armor sets that aren't too heavy for minimal investment. In the previous games, I found that everyone would just wear the lightest clothing sets so that they could have the fastest movement speed, and every other piece of armor in the game would be dismissed or invalid in their eyes, for the most part. However, in this game that's no longer the case, and it's easier to wear heavier gear without being slowed down. Even the adaptability stat can be pretty useful. Not only for increasing your character's agility, but your poise as well, which is a very important stat when playing PvP combat, and a good stat to have in general. Overall, I love how they did the leveling stats in this game the most, and I find they did it really smart, and every stat they chose to be in this game made a lot of sense. This was the most well done out of all the games. Number 4, spells. Out of every entry to the Souls series, this game nailed casters. The way they did the casting system in Dark Souls 2 was the best in my opinion. Dark Souls 2 introduced a new way to upgrade your spells and make them more powerful. In the player's status menu, if you look in the second to the left column near the bottom, there's Magic BNS, Fire BNS, Lightning BNS, and Dark BNS stats. These are the 4 different damage types for spells. When you put points into Intelligence, your Magic and Fire BNS go up, increasing not only your damage on sorceries, but pyromancies as well. When you put points into Faith, your Lightning and Fire BNS go up, increasing the damage on miracles as well as pyromancies. This was really smart. No matter which type of spell you decide to use, whether it be sorceries or miracles, your pyromancy damage goes up as well. so you can always switch to pyromancies or juggle both types if you wish. I like this a lot more than the first Dark Souls, where pyromancy wasn't even a stat you could level, and by the third playthrough, pyromancies became a little too weak and would fall off in comparison to the other spells. Also, adding hexes was unique and a great addition to the game. Putting points into both intelligence and faith increases your dark BNS to make hexes stronger. Hexes were originally introduced in the first Dark Souls in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, but they were considered taboo sorceries. But in Dark Souls 2, they became a standalone spell type, and I definitely had fun with them. They added more variety into the game for casters. This game implemented spells the best out of all the games. Number 3. Online multiplayer. Out of all the changes in Dark Souls 2, I think this one is my personal favorite. The way they did online multiplayer in this game was absolutely flawless. The original entry to the Souls series, Demon Souls, introduced a very unique way to play online. And although it was very fun, it could get pretty frustrating at times. Dark Souls 1 was even worse. Dark Souls 1 took a huge step backwards for multiplayer, and made it almost impossible to play with your friends more times than not. But Dark Souls 2 did it perfectly. Dark Souls 2 corrected their biggest mistakes in the past and improved off of it. And that's something game developers seriously need to do more often. I can't count how many times I played a game that I loved, that only had a couple serious problems with it, and then when the sequel came out, they not only didn't fix these problems, but created more problems or made the old ones worse. I can't express to you how much I appreciated Dark Souls 2 for this. Dark Souls 2 not only made it as easy as it was to play with others in Demon Souls, but they made it even more convenient for friends who love to co-op. The name-engraved ring was everything this game needed to be perfect. It removes the complications of an online lobby, and packs the convenience of co-op all in one little ring with a list of private servers disguised as deities. Basically, this ring allows you to see other players' soul signs they placed, who are also under the same name while wearing the ring, making playing with friends much easier than ever before. They even fixed a problem I always mentioned they should for years, which was adding headset capability to the game, and that was just a bonus. Ultimately, this was one of the biggest, best, and most welcome changes to the series yet. Number 2. Warping. Now, not everyone may agree with me on this one, but I personally think this was a change for the better. And I think a lot of people would agree with me. In the first entry to the Souls series, Demon Souls, warping wasn't really an issue. Sure, it was a big game with a lot to explore, but every area was divided into worlds. Each world was divided into sections until you'd eventually clear the area and move on. Warping was never an issue because the game felt like a series of levels, Stage 1, Stage 2, and so forth. Dark Souls 1 was when it became clear that warping was a bit of a necessity. Sure, people love the exploration factor, myself included, but when you've already cleared out an entire area, looted every item, and beat the boss, it was kind of a hassle to keep walking back through areas you've already visited. There was warping in the game, but it was only after you cleared Anor Londo and acquired the Lord Vessel. And you could only warp to specific bonfires, not all of them, so there was a bit of walking to do. I remember before I beat Ornstein and Smough, I was having a bit of trouble with the enemies in the castle, and I wanted to return to the blacksmith to upgrade my weapon, but I had to walk all the way back through Anor Londo and back through Sen's fortress. It was a hassle to say the least. But in Dark Souls 2, you can literally warp to every bonfire you've ever rested at. You could pretty much warp anywhere you want. It was a great addition, and it didn't take away from the exploration at all. There was still a lot of walking to be done before you actually found the bonfires. It was just a great convenience, and with this being the biggest game in the series, it was a welcome addition. Number 1, the Soul Vessel. This was definitely the best thing about Dark Souls 2, generally speaking. The Soul Vessel is an item you can find throughout Dark Souls 2. If memory serves, there are around 6 of them that can be obtained in one playthrough, unless you farm them using the bonfire ascetic method. This handy little thing enables you to redistribute all the points you have invested into your stats over again for a one-time use of each soul vessel. This can be done by speaking to one of the old firekeepers you met at the beginning of the game during character creation. The soul vessels were one of my favorite things about the game. In every other Dark Souls, whenever I wanted to deviate from my build, I'd have to make a new character to try new builds, which meant starting the whole game over. In Dark Souls 2, you can just use a soul vessel and respec your stats however you want and try out completely new builds, all conveniently on one account. This takes away the hassle of making new characters over and over, and adds way more fun and variety to your main file. The soul vessels were absolute genius, and easily the number 1 thing Dark Souls 2 did right.
Now, go along.
Well guys, that's it for this video. That was the top 6 things Dark Souls 2 did right, in my opinion. And let me know what you guys think. Post in the comments if I'm right, if you think there's something I missed, or you know, whatever, your thoughts. If you have your own personal opinion on what you thought was better, then let me know. I want to hear about it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Like, subscribe, and cheers.